Good evening, everybody, and welcome. My name's Gwen Cavanaugh, and I'm chair of C.A.R.P Chapter 36 for Barrie and surrounding areas. And it's my pleasure to welcome you here tonight for our live political forum for the Barrie-Springwater Oro-Medonte Riding. Welcome also to those at home who are watching on Facebook and YouTube. Thanks to the courtesy of Stephen of Michael's audio and visual back there. He's donated all his services, and we can't thank him enough for what he's doing tonight. I also want to take a minute to apologize for the 7-minute delay last evening. It was our fault in the delay. It was our C.A.R.P link, which has now been fixed, but I wanted to apologize to Stephen because he's just done a terrific job, and we really appreciate everything he's doing for us. Welcome tonight to our ladies. We have Liberal candidate Tanya Sari and NDP candidate over here on this side, and Sarah Lockheed. Welcome. Our Conservative candidate, MP Doug Shipley, is at a family function tonight, so he's not here. But we always send out 5 questions on 5 topics in advance, and he has answered those questions and sent them to us, and our moderator, Ron Stevens, will be reading his answers tonight. The Green Party candidates did not meet the timeline for nominations of candidate, so there is no Green candidate for either of the Barrie ridings. And so because we might have a little extra time tonight at the end of the questions and the chat coming in from our online, we thought we might take a little time to get to know the 2 ladies here, the Liberal and the NDP candidate, because they're both new to most of us. So we'll do a little bit of a chat at the end, and you can get another view of these lovely candidates. So I'm now going to turn you over to our moderator, Ron Stevens. Thank you.
Thank you, Gwen. I'll just take a minute before we get started just to go over what the program is going to be tonight. We'll start off with introductory remarks of about 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes by each of the candidates. As Gwen has already indicated, the C.A.R.P executive put together 5 questions which were provided to the candidates in advance. We will go through those one at a time. We had a little lottery here to start. So Sarah will be answering the first question first. Tanya will be answering the second question first. I will answer for Doug the third question. So we rotate, so everybody will have a slightly different position in terms of answering the questions. There are 5 questions. We'll go over them one by one, and I will read the question prior to the answers being provided. Each of the candidates was given sort of a time frame of 3 minutes for their answers. So I'll keep track, and I've got a little bell here. So with 15 seconds to go, I'll ring the bell. But we don't hold them right to the second, but we try and keep it fairly close. It's going to take us probably the better part of an hour to do the first part, and then, as Gwen has suggested, we'll have some time to get to know the candidates after closing remarks. So we'll do the closing remarks right after the 5 questions, and then we'll get to know the candidate portion after that, if that's okay. So now last night I forgot, after doing this, telling everybody how it was going to work, I went right to the questions and I got corrected right off the bat. So I won't do that tonight. We'll start with the introductory remarks, and Sarah's going to lead us off.
Thank you so much. So hello everyone, and thank you for the opportunity to be with you today. My name is Sarah Lockheed, and I'm the NDP candidate running to become your elected MP. I'm a new mom, and my son Felix is 19 months old, and I feel that something has really shifted about the way I view politics. I think it's easy to become cynical and to feel like matters of government are beyond our reach to change. But now I can't help but look at the world through the wonder of Felix's eyes and be reminded that there are new ways forward, and that each day is filled with possibility. And that is why I chose to put my name forward to be your elected MP with the New Democrats. The New Democrats are committed to making your life more affordable, taking care of each other through this pandemic and beyond, and doing what is necessary to fight the climate crisis. I'm looking forward to sharing with you what a New Democrat government is committed to doing for you through this evening's forum. Thank you.
you. You can hear me okay? This is, no? No? I'm gonna move it up. This is the news mute button on Zoom. So good evening, my name is Tanya Sari and I am the Liberal candidate in Barrie, Springwater, Oro-Medonte. And thank you, C.A.R.P, for having us, and it's nice to see Sarah again today. So I've been a Barrie resident for 16 years. I am a wife, a mom, and an entrepreneur. I started a career of 9 years in the banking industry. When we moved to Barrie, I transitioned into entrepreneurship, owning my own fitness business, as well as now becoming a real estate agent and running my own real estate business. More important to me, though, is the commitment that I have made to our community. When we moved here, I did see that there were a lot of things that I wanted to help make improvements upon, and that led me to volunteer. One of my biggest accomplishments as a volunteer is volunteering with Redwood Park Communities. If you haven't heard of them, they are an organization that provides hope through housing and works alongside some other great organizations to provide safe and affordable housing for people that live in our community. And I've been a part of that for 5 years, and just seeing a need of what we need within Barrie, Springwater, Oro-Medonte is what drove me to run. And as a Liberal candidate, because I feel they have a great platform and a great representation, we have a lot of values. We want to provide health and make it a priority for all Canadians. Affordable housing is important. The $10 a day child care that has been implemented is very important. Coming out of this pandemic strong is important to me. And also just making way on our truth and reconciliation with our Indigenous peoples, or the Indigenous peoples. And so thank you for having us here tonight and allowing us the opportunity to talk about the questions, but also at the end learn more about us, because I think that's going to be the fun part.
I'm not sure if I should run down to Doug's place or not. Thank you to the hardworking members of C.A.R.P for putting together this important session this evening. Your advocacy for seniors is always respected and appreciated. I would like to sincerely apologize for not being able to attend in person this evening, but prior to receiving this invitation, I had an important family obligation which could not be rescheduled. I thank you for your understanding and encourage anyone with questions to please feel free to contact me directly at any time. I would like to thank my fellow candidates for their efforts during this campaign and look forward to a healthy and respectful exchange of ideas. So the first question given to the candidates was related to COVID-19. The biggest focus of this election is COVID-19. It is obviously a critical issue and significantly harmed our provincial healthcare systems and economy. What is your party's plan to recover from the pandemic? If possible, please include timeframes and cost in your answer. Sarah, over to you.
Thank you. So the COVID-19 pandemic, as we know, is an evolving situation and one that we need to be able to ensure no one is left behind in our plans and path to recovery. The Liberals and Conservatives have built an economy that's working for the very richest, but fails for the rest of us. And we have an opportunity during this recovery to do better. People are working harder than ever, but feel like it's impossible to get ahead, and the pandemic has only made things worse. And it's not just about finances. It's about long hours, working multiple jobs, less time with families and friends, and high levels of stress. So the Liberals are already clawing back supports from Canadians who are looking for work, sick, or providing care for their children, even though the pandemic isn't over and we're into a fourth wave. Almost half of Canadian families are living paycheck to paycheck, while the wealthiest Canadians have grown their income during the pandemic. Jagmeet Singh and the NDP will rebuild our economy and support ordinary Canadians by implementing a wealth tax and excess profit tax to ensure that the ultra-rich pay their fair share, and investing in revenue from those taxes and services that Canadians need, like pharmacare, affordable housing, and childcare, and creating 1 million good green jobs that help rebuild local economies and create green infrastructure, and extending pandemic supports until the pandemic is truly over, and implementing permanent paid sick leave. I would be remiss not to point out that there are 10 times more women out of the labor force today than at the start of the pandemic, and women face the highest rates of COVID-19 related unemployment, myself included. I had to make the very difficult decision not to return to work after my mat leave because commuting to Toronto for my job or working remotely while trying to balance his care felt like an impossible decision. And there are a lot of women who are having to make that choice right now with their careers. Businesses owned by women have been the hardest hit by the pandemic and are taking nearly twice as long to recover. And Canadian women make 32% less than men, and the gap is even wider for racialized women, Indigenous women, immigrant women, and women with disability. And it's crucial that economic recovery address these inequalities. In addition to investing in affordable and universal childcare, a new Democratic government will implement proactive pay equity legislation to address gender-based wage discrimination. And that is something that I think is paramount as we go through this pandemic together, is to look at those inequalities and make sure that no one is left behind. Thank you.
I like the clapping. We didn't get clapping on the Zoom one. Anyways, COVID-19 has been very tough on everybody, and it's been a really tough year and a half, and I think everybody in this room can attest to that. One thing that we have seen come out of it is that Canadians have really stuck together throughout it, and I even think locally we've seen a lot more community-driven programs like Barrie Families Unite and things that have really drawn people together. I'm proud to be a part of a party who made sure that we had more than enough vaccines for all Canadians and worked quickly to create and streamline support systems for those that needed it most, whether that was the recovery benefit or the wage subsidy the government took care of people. First of all, we will make sure that Canadians are safe from COVID-19. This means supporting provinces and territories with vaccine passports. We are focused on growing the economy, helping families and seniors, and cleaning the environment for our children. By delivering a $10 a day childcare, we will save families from the high cost of childcare. We hear over and over again that a lot of women have had to stay home to look after their children during this pandemic and give up their careers. I know for me personally, when I was in my banking career, if I had had a $10 a day childcare, I would have been able to return to work instead of having to make that decision to stay at home and raise my children. Increasing the CPP survivors benefit by 25% is something that we will do over the next year. Increasing old age security by 10% next year, as well as increasing the guaranteed income supplement by $500 for single seniors and $750 for couples starting at the age of 65. There's just a few of the ways that we're going to help overcome what's happened during this pandemic, and then there's always room for better.
Okay, Doug's answer to the COVID-19 question. The pandemic has had a profound impact on Canada's economy and has affected local businesses and families across Barrie, Springwater, Oro-Medonte. I have heard from residents that the biggest issue they are currently facing is affordability. The message I am hearing from residents of all ages in every community is loud and clear. We must do something to make life more affordable. Everyone is seeing prices going up, and they are worried. The pandemic has affected our economy, but is not the sole reason for affordability issues Canadians are facing. Years of liberal ideology in government have created mass amounts of liberal inflation, and as a result, people are having trouble making ends meet. People are seeing prices skyrocket on housing, groceries, gasoline, and everything else, and they are worried about their future and their children's future. Just like the people I am meeting during this election, I am worried that millions of Canadian workers and small businesses are being left behind, especially those who have been unemployed for 6 months, a year, or even longer. I am pleased to tell you that I am listening, and Conservative leader Erin O'Toole is listening and has a plan to address these concerns for Canadians. We have oops, that's me. We have a strong plan to secure jobs and economic growth for local businesses and across the entire country. Conservatives got us out of the last recession, and we will get us out of this one, too, with the Canada Recovery Plan. Okay, second question, and Tanya will start off with this one. The question is, what is your top priority for spending, and where will the money come from?
Thank you. So top priority for spending, I just want to start by saying that we're focused on investing in people. We want to ensure that life is more affordable and that people have access to housing, good jobs, and clean environment for generations to come. In 2015, we increased taxes on the wealthy and reduced them from middle class because we believe that the richest in the country should pay their fair share. There is still more to do, and our plan includes raising corporate income taxes on the largest, most profitable banks and insurance companies, and increasing funding to the CRA to go after anyone who is trying to keep money out of the country to avoid paying taxes. I'll reiterate again on the $10 a day childcare plan, which will help put many people back into the workforce, as well as our housing plan, which will build more affordable homes for Canadians. And I hope that someday my children can buy a home. So this is a big one for me. We're going to build 1.4 million homes. There's a rent-to-own program, as well as monetary incentives to help people get into their first homes. I've seen firsthand throughout this pandemic the struggle for that. And you'll probably hear me say it throughout this a lot, that affordable housing is a very important issue to me, and we need to make some investments there. Thank you.
Yeah, Doug's turn. Just to make sure I've got yes, I'm on the right page. Even before COVID, Canada's economy had ground to a halt with zero growth at the end of 2019. Billions in investment and thousands of jobs left Canada because of ideological liberal policies and attacks on job creators. Our national debt has climbed over 1.2 trillion, and the Liberal and NDP leaders have no plan to control spending, let alone balance the budget and get Canada back on sound financial footing. The top priority for a Conservative government is getting as many people back to work in good jobs in every part of Canada, in every sector, in every region as quickly as possible. Our plan to recover 1 million jobs lost during the pandemic will also stimulate the economy across Canada and increase long-term economic growth. We recognize that many seniors have been significantly impacted by the pandemic. Under a Conservative government, the Canada Workers' Benefit will be increased and paid quarterly to help seniors who choose to continue working past retirement. This will be equal to a $1 per hour raise for low-income seniors who are working part-time to supplement their retirement income. Let's see, I just got to make sure. I think that's it. Over to you.
Thank you. So I just want to point out, based on Doug's answer, that no one in this election is promising a balanced budget. We're not in that place in terms of recovery from this pandemic. And there also is a cost to inaction, so we need to consider that too. Previous governments have chosen austerity or taxing everyone as paths forward, and the New Democrats see a third option, and that third option is to make sure that the ultra-wealthy who profited from the pandemic are helping to pay, and so our top priority is putting people first and people over profit and affordability. And we need a prime minister who stops protecting the ultra-rich and fights to make life more affordable for all of us. 3/4 of Canadians worry that they're not going to do as well as their parents did. I'm one of them. Home ownership is not something that I see as a possibility for myself, regardless of working as hard as I possibly can. And if it's not working for most Canadians, we need to make a change, and it's time to make investments where people need it most. So this is addressing out-of-control housing prices, reducing the student debt burden, making prescription drugs available to everyone, and investing in good quality jobs all over Canada. And our approach to raising revenues will put people first by tackling the inequality and the crisis facing our country and strengthen the integrity of our tax system to ensure that large profitable corporations and the very rich just pay a bit more. The no strings attached tax cuts that Liberals and Conservative governments have handed out to profitable corporations have not translated into more business investment or good jobs for Canadians, and despite that, the Liberal government keeps Conservative corporate tax cuts in place and added billions in new corporate giveaways on top of that, including allowing companies to use pandemic aid to pad shareholder profits and CEO bonuses. So while profitable corporations benefit from these generous breaks, Canadians' families we're falling behind, and New Democrats believe that it's time to rebalance our priorities. We'll roll out corporate tax cuts back to their 2010 levels, or 18%, while maintaining the small business tax rate at its current level. And for the highest income individuals in Canada, we will increase the top marginal tax rate by 2 points to 35%, and those at the very top, the super rich multimillionaires with over 10 million in wealth, will be asked to pay more towards our shared services with 1% wealth tax. And to make our tax system fairer, And more progressive, a new Democratic government will also increase the amount of investment profits subject to capital gains taxation to 75%, the rate that was in place in the year 2000. And this will generate significant revenue every year to fund the services Canadians need while ensuring greater equality for our tax system, as 88% of this billion-dollar benefit currently goes to the richest 1% of Canadians. The revenue raised by these measures will kickstart Canada's economy and recovery and build a more secure future for everyday people. We're also looking to cut loopholes for CEOs in terms of offshoring, and that is definitely a big issue. And then with respect to the housing crisis, which I will talk about more later on, rather than doing just 2 years of putting a ban on foreign buying, we're looking at putting in place a 20% foreign buyers tax on purchases of residential property by foreign corporations and people who are not citizens or permanent residents. So here's the thing. I know a lot of people say, oh, well, your plan's going to raise everyone's taxes and kill jobs. NDP. And it's like, no, that's not the case. We're looking at the ultra-rich, and everybody wins when we deliver better public services that all Canadians can rely on. And people know that, and so do businesses. For decades, governments in Ottawa have been talking about helping people, but making fiscal choices that benefit the wealthiest most. And we need to make sure that families aren't left behind by the pandemic. And that means making smart investments to make life more affordable to keep our economy strong. Thank you.
The third question, Doug will be answering this one first. In February 2021, the Canadian Association for Long-Term Care, C.A.R.P, presented its recommendations for resident-centered, principle-based national standards for long-term care. The COVID-19 pandemic shone a light on the significant accountability deficit in respect of long-term care services and programs. What is your party's perspective on uniform national standards, and how would you work with the provinces to implement it, including penalties? Would you also work to move warehousing in many of these homes to transformative care? Okay, I'll switch my hat now. And this is Doug speaking. The impact that COVID-19 has had on seniors living at long-term care homes across this country has been tragic, and our own community is still hurting from the devastation of the outbreak last winter at Roberta Place. The pandemic has shone a bright light on the failures of our long-term care system, and I believe that all levels of government must work together to make the necessary improvements. We know that Canada's population is aging, and we will need a variety of housing options for seniors in the future. That's why Conservatives have a comprehensive plan to fix long-term care, working alongside the provinces and territories to develop a set of best practices for long-term care homes. We will provide guidance to make necessary improvements to care without intruding on provincial jurisdiction. At the same time, we will be working to make improvements that will help seniors who want to stay in their homes longer. Canada's Conservatives will devote $3 billion of infrastructure funding over the next 3 years to renovate long-term care homes and boost the number of personal support workers. We will amend the home accessibility tax credit limit from $10,000 per dwelling to $10,000 per person. We will also allow seniors or their caregivers to claim the annual medical expense tax credit for home care, and we will support seniors living with their families with the Canada Seniors Care Benefit, $200 per month per household to any Canadian who is living with and taking care of a parent over the age of 70. I believe that these measures will assist seniors in Barrie, Springwater, Oro-Medonte, and I am committed to ensuring that needed changes are made.
So thank you for asking this very important question. My father transitioned from home care to a long-term care facility this past spring. And this transition is huge for not just the person entering care, of course, but also their primary caregiver and their family. And it shouldn't have the added stress or anxiety of worrying about the quality of care, because despite your best research, these decisions and Zoom tours, these decisions are made in a moment where you're still trying to understand the way it's going to impact you and your family. And, you know, having that added burden of just being concerned about the quality of care when oftentimes, unless you're the primary caregiver, you can't even step foot in that facility right now, is really challenging. So for us as the NDP, developing national care standards are a crucial part of ensuring our loved ones' safety and providing peace of mind to families for those who are in care. And because of decades of cuts and underfunding and privatization, COVID-19 has claimed the lives of thousands of Canadians in long-term care homes, and Liberal and Conservative governments have failed to invest in the public services that Canadians need, and too many families have paid the tragic price. It's time to work with the provinces and territories. This is not something that we can pass the buck of jurisdiction to. This is something we need to work together on. It's a complex healthcare needs for our aging population that we need to address together. And part of that is to take the profit and greed out of that care for our most vulnerable and loved ones. And it's time for government on the side of aging Canadians and their families and the frontline healthcare workers. New Democrats believe that families need access to quality home care and long-term care no matter where they live. And to that end, we'll end private for-profit long-term care and bring long-term care under the umbrella of the public. We'll work collaboratively with patients, caregivers, and provincial and territorial governments to develop these national care standards for home care and long-term care and regulate it with the same principles as the Canadian Health Act. And by doing so, a new Democratic government will legally protect access to home care and long-term care services and ensure a consistent quality of care across the country. And part of that as well, I'd like to mention, is that we also, within this context of care and making sure everyone has access to it, the new Democratic government is committed as well to ensuring that our LGBTQI2S+ seniors feel safe to be themselves in care and in residences, and making sure that they have undiscriminatory care as well. And the new Democratic government is committed to bringing in a national seniors strategy. And this is to make seniors' health care a priority, to reduce isolation and tackle seniors' poverty. And this strategy will no doubt include consultation with stakeholders, seniors, their families, and aim to bring about transformative experience for seniors both living in care and at home, because we need to take care of you guys. Like, seniors, you guys helped build this country and helped us get to where we are. And you know, you don't just hit a certain age and disappear and become invisible. Like, that's not what we want. And it can feel that way when, you know, just thinking of visiting care homes in the past with my grandmother, it can feel like that warehousing, and we really want to make sure everyone is taken care of. Thank you.
Thank you. We've heard it from Doug's statement and Sarah too, that the long-term care situation we have in Canada right now is unacceptable, and it hit home hard for us with Roberta Place during the pandemic, and we must absolutely do more to protect our seniors. My nephew works in a long-term care home here in Barrie as a PSW, and through conversations I've had with him, it's brought to light for me the situations that are happening. He's a PSW, and he is responsible for prepping 10 residents with Alzheimer's in a very short period of time to get down to a dining hall, something that he struggles to do in the time frame that he's allotted. And I think that it makes me proud that our government will train more PSWs for long-term care homes and also give them a fair wage of $25 an hour. So much more has to be done. Our party is focused on developing a safe long-term care act to guarantee a high standard of care for seniors across the country, and we will introduce a new expert panel to establish an aging at home benefit. Through the Canada Caregiver Recovery Benefit, almost 150,000 people received over $750 million to take care of their loved ones who fell ill during the pandemic. But I've said it before and I will say it again, we must do more and we can do better. We do need to work with the provinces and territories to improve the quality and availability of long-term care homes, and we will invest $9 billion over the next 5 years to make sure those who have worked so hard to provide for us their entire lives have a safe and comfortable place to call home throughout their retirement.
The fourth question concerns the environment. Canada continues to produce triple its share of climate change causing greenhouse gas emissions. Although Parliament recently passed an act pledging net zero emissions by 2050 with the support of 4 parties in the House, Canada has consistently missed easier targets in the past. In light of unprecedented damaging forest fires and weather events around the globe, it was pointed out last night, it's here in Barrie too, what is your party's plan to meet or exceed this bare minimum goal? Sarah's going to lead this off.
Cool. This is one of my favorite issues to talk about. Well, I mean, yes and no. Like, there's a climate crisis, so do I want to be talking about climate crisis? No. But I'm excited about what the New Democrats have in store to help tackle this crisis, like we're going to win. So the New Democrats have a plan to tackle the climate emergency and create good jobs. And with the NDP's leadership, Canada now has a net zero law in place, but that is only a first step, and we're ready to fight to build a cleaner future. Canada is the only G7 country whose emissions have gone up since the Paris Agreement, and that's just unacceptable. And under Trudeau, we have had the weakest 2030 climate target of any G7 country, and I don't even think we're on track to meet those low goals. The last time the Conservatives were in government, they pulled Canada out of the Kyoto Protocol, setting the country back in meeting international climate targets. So building on Canada's net zero law by setting an ambitious target of reducing our emissions by at least 50% from 2005 levels by 2030, that's what we're going to do. And this is what we're going to do to reach that goal. We would eliminate fossil fuel subsidies, put in place carbon budgets, and change the mandate of the Bank of Canada to focus on contributing to net zero. And we'll create a fund, a climate accountability office, to provide independent oversight of federal climate progress and engage the public and make recommendations on how to achieve those goals. So we're open and want to make sure that this is an ongoing dialogue because it impacts all of us, and it impacts us, you know, not just with respect to climate and inclement weather, but if we're looking at biodiversity and our endangered species, and how that also snowballs and contributes to health crises like the one we're seeing with the pandemic, right? Where viruses are jumping from animals to people because of changes in conditions and closeness, and there's a lot of issues that intersect. And so within that, the NDP as well are looking at making sure that any of our strategies towards affordability in housing are also looking at the green impact and retrofitting homes as well and other buildings by 2030 and by 2050 to make sure that they are up to the best standards possible in terms of energy efficiency.
Oh, it's my turn? Sorry, I never know if it's me or Doug. Or sorry, I was waiting for Doug. Sorry. Climate change is real, and what is happening to our country is heartbreaking. I am proud to say that we have the most comprehensive climate plan that has actually been endorsed by several experts in the field, saying that we have the best climate plan that was just released. Not only do we have the best climate plan, but we also have a costing plan that goes along with that. We are working to achieve net zero emissions as soon as possible, and we will eliminate fossil fuel subsidies. We announced that we will target a 40 to 45% reduction in emissions by 2030, and we are making a historical investment of $1 billion to the Freshwater Action Plan, which includes protecting Lake Simcoe, and I'm sure everybody in this room can appreciate that that's something that's very important to all of us here. Lake Simcoe, I take my kids down to the beach. I mean, they don't want to hang out with me as much anymore, but we would go down to Johnson's Beach and swim, so it's really important that we put those protections in place so that we can still swim in our lake and people can still go ice fishing in the winter. I want to touch just briefly on the forest fires in BC because those have also been devastating, and our government will train 1,000 new community-based firefighters, but we still have to continue to put a price on pollution. Thank you.
In light of unprecedented damaging forest fires and weather events around the globe, I'm sorry, that's the question. Anyway, Doug then moved into, I recognize that climate change is real and the impact on our ecosystems and our communities is significant. My heart goes out to the Canadians who are suffering as a result of the devastating wildfires out west and in northern Ontario this summer. Let me assure you that Conservatives will fight climate change and protect our environment, but we won't do it on the backs of hardworking Canadians. The solution is not as simple as increasing a carbon tax on Canadians year after year. To reach our emission reduction goal, we will work with all provinces and territories to become a leader in climate action, not ignoring the fact that the U.S. does not yet have a national carbon pricing system, and the present state of global trade allows some of the world's worst polluters to become free riders to the detriment of Canadian workers. Of course, a comprehensive plan for the environment must include waterways. As we promised in the last election, a Conservative government will reinstate the Simcoe Cleanup Fund, the plan that was working to reduce phosphorus levels in the lake, the plan that the Liberal government cancelled in 2017. I have been a strong advocate for the past 2 years, pressuring the Trudeau government to make good on their promise, and they have done nothing. A Conservative government will reinstate funding, and we will resume our work with local groups to improve and protect the health of Lake Simcoe, so that our children and grandchildren will be able to enjoy it as much as we do. Okay. So I think, correct me if I'm wrong, are we at affordability? Good. I got to pretend. Yeah, I'm worried about which hat I have on. Affordability is the fifth question. And I guess, Tanya, you will answer this one quick first. Yes, I think, yep. Yes, we're still on track. Our C.A.R.P chapter has commenced a seniors community fund to assist those seniors living below the poverty line of $1,645.21 a month or less in Ontario. Similar issues exist across Canada. The current GIS, the Guaranteed Income Supplement, is insufficient to assist these impoverished individuals. How much is your party prepared to increase the GIS in the next 12 months or less to help eliminate this suffering?
Perfect, thank you, now that we have it all figured out. Seniors have given us so much, and we must take care of them. And when we're talking about seniors, I often think of my mom. She's living on her own, and she is on a fixed income. And it's also hard for us as children of parents who are aging, what they call us the sandwich generation, because we have our parents on one side and our kids on the other that we're wanting to take care of. I mean, they spend their lives taking care of us, and now it's our turn to give back. So as a government, we will continue making life more affordable for seniors by increasing the guaranteed income supplement by $500 for single seniors and $750 for senior couples. We'll also help seniors stay in their homes for longer and work with the provinces and territories to improve long-term care so seniors are safe and comfortable wherever they live. This builds on our $9 billion commitment to provide better care for seniors and frontline care workers, as well as actions we have already taken to make life more affordable for seniors both before and during the pandemic. Those which include restoring the retirement age from 65 to 65 from 67 after the Conservatives raised it and cost thousands of dollars. Increasing the GIS for 900,000 seniors and lifting about 57,000 of those out of poverty, and providing more than $900 for single seniors and $1,500 for senior couples on top of regular benefits for low-income seniors to get through the pandemic. We will also include a 1-800 helpline for seniors to provide a single point of access to a wide range of government services and benefits. This one is a very personal one to me. As I said, I have a mother who is living in this right now, and I think I heard Sarah say earlier she's concerned about Felix and his future. Well, I'm concerned about my kids' futures, but I'm also concerned about my mother's present, and that is why I decided to run to better what's happening in the world. So thank you.
First, I commend C.A.R.P for acting to assist seniors struggling financially in this community, and I'm saddened to know that many people in Barrie-Simcoe, BSOM, continue struggling to afford adequate housing and to put food on their tables. This is especially sad when you think about just how much Canadian seniors have contributed to this country. They deserve better. Inflation is at a 2-decade high. Grocery bills keep going up, and each trip to the gas station seems to hurt more. To lower prices, we need to get inflation under control and ensure that there is more competition. Canada's Conservatives have a detailed plan to make life more affordable. One way to tackle grocery prices is to increase the maximum penalty for price fixing from 24 million to 100 million and introduce criminal penalties, including jail time, for executives convicted of price fixing. Canada's Conservatives will also bring in a tough code of conduct to protect suppliers and to promote grocery competition. The other piece of the affordability puzzle is to put more money back in Canadians' pockets. One way we will do that is by doubling the Canada Workers' Benefit up to a maximum of $2,800 for individuals or $5,000 for families, and pay it as a quarterly direct deposit rather than a tax refund at year end. This will help seniors who choose to continue working past retirement to give themselves a bit more income. Conservatives believe that workers should be able to rely on their pensions, and we will change legislation to ensure that pensioners have priority over corporate elites in bankruptcy or restructuring situations. I'm proud of the new ideas being put forward by Conservatives in Canada's recovery plan. It's a plan for all Canadians, and it is a framework to inspire businesses and investment while protecting those who are most vulnerable. Okay. So that's, oh, you got an answer? Yeah. Okay, good.
Thanks. I don't like being missed. This has happened. It's the second time that's happened today.
You actually warned me about that, didn't you?
I did. I warned you ahead of time. No, it's fine. So first of all, I want to start by saying that you're absolutely correct that the current GIS is insufficient. And seniors deserve the right to retire with dignity and security, and you've invested in your working lives to make Canada better. But now, families are seeing their loved ones live with financial insecurity, poverty, and isolation. And Tanya and I have this in common. My mom now lives on her own too, now that my dad's in long-term care. And, you know, one of the ways that I think what we're planning to do with pharmacare would really help is I see her use a huge chunk of her income having to buy an insulin pump, you know, and it's challenging to see that and to see her struggle in that way on a fixed income, and that shouldn't be the reality for our seniors. We're committed to strengthening the public pension and improving retirement security for all Canadians and providing a basic guaranteed livable income for seniors. A new Democratic government will create a pension advisory commission to develop a long-term plan to enhance old age security and boost the guaranteed income supplement to lift all seniors out of poverty and strengthen the Canadian pension plan. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe the last time the Conservatives were in power, they raised the retirement age to 67 with like little consultation. So one thing we want to make possible in the context of OAS and GIS is to make it automatic enrollment and make it retroactive so that no retiree misses out on the benefits that they should be receiving, and support efforts to make sure Canadians have good retirement and financial literacy. And we can create a Canada where no seniors fall through the gaps. And the way we're going to do that is by bringing in that national senior strategy to make seniors' health care a priority and reduce isolation and tackle seniors' poverty, taking the profit out of long-term care, implementing universal public pharmacare and dental care, building accessible, affordable housing to increase choices for seniors, ending pension theft by ensuring that seniors with pensions are at the front of the line when corporations fail, and improving services for seniors living in rural and remote communities. So during the COVID-19 pandemic, we've seen that it's possible for government to step up and provide basic income to Canadians in difficult circumstances, and that this support can be transformational. And that's why New Democrats will begin work to expand income security programs, beginning with seniors and people living with disabilities, to build towards a future where all individuals residing in Canada can have access to a guaranteed livable basic income. Thank you.
So that now does end the official 5 questions. So we will move into closing remarks now. I'm sorry? Yep, but that's okay. We'll get there. Let's do the closing remarks, and we'll finish off this part of the session. And then, actually, we're moving along quite well in terms of time, so we're going to have some time for questions from the audience, questions from our virtual audience, and get to know the candidates as well. So I think we're up to Doug in terms of closing remarks. Correct? Yep, okay. I have a 6 on this one, so I think I'm right. In closing, I would like once again to thank the organizers and my fellow candidates for this informative session. Elections are extremely important to our democratic process, and I acknowledge all the citizens who have attended this session to learn more about each party's platforms. Engagement and interaction is important, especially during campaigns. If anyone would like to hear from me personally on any issues that have been discussed tonight or are important to them, please feel free to contact me at any time. Thank you, Doug Shipley. Okay, Sarah.
Thank you for the opportunity to have this robust conversation tonight. You know, I've been hearing time and again from members of the community during this campaign that this is not the right time for the Liberals to call an election, yet here we find ourselves. At a critical moment in our collective history, inside a global pandemic, in the throes of a climate crisis, an opioid crisis, a housing crisis, a crisis of inadequate care for seniors, vulnerable and marginalized peoples, and experiencing a long overdue reckoning with Canada's brutal colonial history and genocide of Indigenous peoples. So myself, along with Jagmeet Singh and the New Democrats, we see a path forward through all of this. And as your elected MP, I'm dedicated to bringing about real change and not just talk, but action to ensure we get through this together. And we'll do this by meeting the 1.5 degree target that scientists say is necessary to prevent a climate catastrophe, provide necessary programs and supports for those who are struggling to make a living, and make living more affordable, and make standards of care of paramount importance, and work with Indigenous peoples to action true reconciliation, because doing anything less, quite frankly, is unacceptable. With your vote, you have the power to say, I expect more from my government, and I want to be part of the solution. And a vote for me, Sarah Lougheed, as your elected MP, is the way to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. I also want to thank C.A.R.P for inviting us here tonight, and Sarah for being here. It's nice to see you again, and Doug for his comments as well, for providing his answers. So we're at a time now when we're providing you, the voters, the opportunity to decide how you want to see us come out of this pandemic and move forward into the future. And the best way you can do that is to vote. And as a person who's been community driven, who's never had a political agenda, that is my goal, is to represent the people that live in Barrie-Springwater, Oro-Medonte fairly and justly, and without concern of where your partisan lies. So if I am your elected official, and hopefully I will have that opportunity, no matter whose name you checked off on the ballot or what party they represent, it is my job to represent you. And I'm really hoping that you will give me the opportunity to do so. And I firmly and solidly believe that the Liberal Party does have the best platform to move us forward in this area. So that's it for me. Thank you, and thank you for being so attentive tonight.
I think, so we're into an opportunity for the second part of the program. And I'm just wondering if perhaps it would be appropriate to start with questions. And I wonder if there are any questions from the people who are in attendance here. If there are, you can just stand up, raise your hand, address the question to one of the candidates, and then the other candidate will have an equal amount of time to respond if there are any. Okay.
Question asked for penalties. Everybody skirted that. We have 650 homes approximately in long-term care in Ontario, and I think there were 3 inspection visits last year or something like that. So in Australia, they have multiple inspections, and if somebody is written up, they have 30 days or they lose their license. There's no incentive here for people to correct the mistakes they make. And I think that's something I would like you to take back to your governments. Thank you.
So, to anyone in particular who would like to deal with it first? Tanya?
Sure, thank you.
Okay.
So I guess it's more of a question of, would we take it back to the government? And I think that it is something we need to take into consideration. I know that those investigations were made on a provincial level, And I don't think enough was done when the results came forward. They came in, they did the investigations, they came up with all the insufficiencies, and I feel like then they just said, okay, those are the inefficiencies, and we're done with it. So, as I said when I closed, it's my responsibility as your elected official to bring those things to caucus, to make those voices heard, to see if we can implement those ideas from you, for sure.
Thank you, Gwen, for that question. And I think, it's heartbreaking to know that there were those inspections and that there's not adequate action. And while a lot of this is provincial, I think that the game of jurisdiction tossing is not acceptable when we're representing our community as an MP, and it's an opportunity to collaborate rather than pass the buck on issues. As part of our national standards of care that the New Democrats are putting forward, as your elected MP, I would definitely fight to see those penalties or some type of penalties put in place as part of that standards of care. I don't see why something like that would not be possible to add. A standard usually has like, this is what's expected and this is what happens if you don't. In terms of the implementation, that would likely be provincial, but there has to be recourse, because if there isn't, then it just continues, right? So we need to do something to make sure, and if that's the way to do it, and through, our national senior strategy and the national standards of care, if the stakeholders come to the consensus that that is the way forward to address that, that's something that I would definitely fight for.
Are there any other questions from the floor? Okay. Seeing none. Oh, here we go. Yes.
The invisible incumbent. I am concerned that when Erin O'Toole was running for leader of the Conservatives, he talked about defunding the CBC. I think CTV is just fine for local Barrie information, but I don't think it's anywhere near as good for beyond Barrie and global matters. I just don't think the strength is there, but the CBC does have it. Erin O'Toole's plan would eliminate English language CBC. It would leave Radio-Canada and CBC Radio, but not the television. These days we get it on the internet. I signed up for CBC Gem, paying all of $5.64 per month, including the tax. That is a real deal compared to if you got, say, Rogers and you got CTV. I would really feel bereft without the CBC. Now, he's not here. I suspect that the other two candidates would be quite happy to say, yeah, the CBC is worth saving. But I don't know that. So I will ask them the question.
Okay, there we go.
Yes, the CBC is worth saving.
Sarah?
Yes, it is, and I would also say that our national broadcasting, the fact that you have to pay $5.68 for something that's public broadcasting is in large.
I don't have to.
Oh no, you're choosing. Sorry, you're choosing.
CBC
Gem Plus. I know.
get all
So you can watch the baking show. I know. I do it.
lots of Canadian
Yep.
foreign stuff as well. So
Yep.
I can go travel the world on some mystery in Scandinavia, see what their life is like, and so on.
Well, just to say, it is a public broadcaster, and they do have that premium edition. And one of the reasons they've had to implement that, as well as other commercial aspects to the CBC, is because of previous governments decimating them with cuts. And I can say with confidence, as an artist myself, that the New Democrats stand behind Canadian artists and creators to make sure that we're not left behind on these major digital platforms, including things like Netflix and on Facebook and other digital platforms as well. So we stand behind the artists and creators, and the CBC. Of course, we should care about the health of our public broadcaster. We have an obligation as a nation to make sure that our people are informed with an unbiased broadcasting organization. And so it's definitely holds a place in my heart as well. I love me the Great British Baking Show. I love me some National. It's all good, and as well as the podcasts as well. So, these digital platforms are expansive, and we're not just speaking to other Canadians now, we're speaking to the world. And so in terms of the quality of the production and the quality and the ability to support creators to really amplify Canadian artistic voices, like that is of paramount importance to the New Democrats and to myself personally.
Tanya? Oh, yes. Is it? Okay. Well, speaking for Doug, he at least twice said, if you have questions that really concern, make sure you get in touch with me. I think that would be an appropriate one to call him on and see what he does think. Anything else from our in-house audience? Okay, I do have a couple of questions, virtual questions too. So, Sarah, you maybe will go first on one, and Tanya, you can go first on the other. Female participation in politics makes great sense. What does your party do to encourage women to participate in politics and allow for work-life balance? Why don't you go first this time? Okay.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I agree. That's, I think, why you see two females sitting up here, that females in politics is important. The Liberal Party does have a strong equality, equity, and diversity, and we're seeing, I think we have far more women in caucus than others have had in the past. I hate to keep hammering back on the $10 a day childcare, but I think that's a really, it drives home with me, because it would have made a huge impact in my life had I had it. And I think that just even offering a $10 a day childcare just shows that, the willingness and the progressiveness to get the women. It shouldn't even be a progressive thing to get the women back in the workforce or get women into the workforce. But I mean, it is something that is going to make a huge impact. And we see our deputy prime minister is a female, so it is a party, I think, that is promoting she in the House, and I'm really, really proud of that. I have met several wonderful female MPs along this journey, which has been lovely, and they all bring so much to the table and add so much depth to what's happening in Ottawa. So I'm proud to be a woman sitting here in front of you, and hopefully one that's representing you in Ottawa. Thank you.
So Tanya and I had a really great chat when we were signing each other's nomination papers, about how, people, often say like, oh, are you concerned about splitting the vote because there's two female candidates on the same ballot? And it's like, no, I feel so less lonely, And so I think, what's important to note with the New Democrats is that over half of the candidates who are running in our full slate of 383 ridings identify as marginalized communities and people who are seeking equity, and that includes women, especially nearby in the ridings around us. I've had such wonderful support from the other candidates in the form of like late night text messages about answering questions and talking to each other, and then NDP as well is looking for universal childcare and also looking to help rectify the gender-based wage gap that we've been seeing over time. And I have to say that my team, my core team of volunteers on this campaign have actually made it really possible for me to do this with a 19-month-old. And so that means like our meetings are at 1:30 because that's nap time, and or the debate today happened to be at nap time that we did for 100 debates on the environment. And I think that it's really important that in Ottawa we see more caregivers at the table, because we understand the intricacies of how different issues intersect with one another, and that issues aren't siloed. They impact people on the ground. And I feel very, very supported inside of the NDP to be politic mom. Can we hashtag that? Is that a thing? Yeah, moms in politics. Yeah. So I do feel that the party has been incredibly supportive.
Okay, our second virtual audience question, which Sarah will go first on. With no Green Party candidate in BSOM for this election, why should a Green Party voter consider voting for your party?
Thank you for that question. I think it's a very important one to look at. I can only imagine what it must feel like for the Green supporters to be so passionate and dedicated to that particular party and not have someone to immediately cast their vote to. I believe very deeply in our climate plan. I think that it's robust, and what I appreciate about the NDP commitments is that it's not just, when you look at a party platform, it lays it out, right? And it's like, oh, we're going to talk about childcare here, we're going to talk about this here. The environment is so integral to every single aspect of the NDP's platform. So looking at affordable housing, we see, commitments to retrofitting homes, we see building energy efficient builds, green builds, committing to public transit, which is a huge issue in this region, especially with Greyhound going, right? So looking for integrated ways and approaches. And I think that taking a deep dive in our Ready for Better commitments on the environment, or if Green supporters have any questions specifically about items that were very important to them about the Green platform that they'd like to talk to me about, I'm open to having those conversations. Again, it must be difficult to not automatically know what party you stand behind if you've been supporting the Greens for so long, but I truly believe that you're welcome with us at the NDP to make a difference and make change, and I welcome those voices and opinions to join us in battling this climate crisis.
Thank you. Yeah, I was surprised we didn't have a Green candidate come forward because we've had strong representation from them in the past, and so it's difficult for people, like Sarah had just said, supporters of the Green Party now not knowing where their vote will go. So I think it's really critically important to take the time to get to know the candidates and what they represent and what they stand for. I've said before, our climate plan has been noted as one of the best. Even the former Green Party leader in BC has said that the Liberal climate plan is marvelous, and we had a costing plan that went with our platform. But I think more importantly, having conversations at the doors, I'm sure Sarah has encountered it as well, when people are asking about us personally. I mean, I think it's important, and we might have some time for a fireside chat, to get to know the candidates and what they represent, because at the end of the day, I am not the leader of the party. I am your representative here in Barrie, Springwater, Oro-Medonte. So when there is an issue, it's me that you will be calling, not the Prime Minister that you're going to pick up the phone and call. You're going to pick up the phone and you're going to call me and reach out to me. So I think it's also really, really important to get to know the individuals, what they represent, will they represent, and will they bring your voice to Ottawa. As I said before, no matter whose name you put your ex beside on the ballot, it's still our responsibility as elected officials to listen to you, no matter what party you would align with. It's our jobs to listen to you and bring those voices back to Ottawa. So, I mean, for me, it's just when you're considering who to vote for, if you're traditionally a Green voter, get to know us as individuals as well as what the party represents, because that might make a huge impact on what your decision is. Thanks.
Leslie just indicated another question has come in, a virtual question, and it kind of builds on the one that we just had. And that is, you will be elected by people in this riding. So from your point of view and what you've been hearing, what would you consider to be the most important issue for this riding at the moment? Tanya, you go first.
Where does one start? Where does one start on this one? There are a lot of issues we're having. So locally, when I'm having conversations at the doors, I think, well, first of all, people are a little overwhelmed because they're not expecting you to say, "Do you have any questions for me?" So it's not an easy task, but affordable housing is huge here. The affordable housing crisis that we are facing is huge in this area. We've seen a lot of influx in people coming to us from the GTA. My daytime job prior to running in this campaign is I'm a real estate agent, and I expected when this pandemic hit that this real estate market would crash, and it did the complete opposite. Everything changed very swiftly, and I think that a lot of us in this industry were overwhelmed by what was happening and seeing so many people pushed out of the housing market. And not only that, just purchasing homes, but I was talking to an individual today who was also telling me that her son was in bidding wars on rental properties. So, I mean, that's a huge thing here. Like, we really need to address the affordable housing crisis that we're facing. The other thing, I know it hasn't come up, and it's not really, I hate to pass the buck and say it's not really a federal issue, it's more of a municipal and provincial issue, but the opioid crisis that we're facing in this community is devastating. We've had a huge opioid crisis happen here, and it's taken the city a long time to actually pass that we have a location for that. And this is another one where I strongly believe that all levels of government need to pull together to tackle the opioid crisis that's happening right here in our backyard. And then, of course, I think we've mentioned it over and over again tonight, but the climate crisis that we're facing is another thing that we're talking about at the doors. And the protection of our Lake Simcoe and the environment as a whole for future generations. So those are the topics that I'm hearing at the doors, and the ones that we're discussing when we're having conversations.
I would say the clap. We love the applause. So I would say I'm hearing the same things for sure. Housing, and to echo what Tanya was saying. I live in a multi-generational home, and part of that reason was, with a young child living in a overpriced basement apartment was not gonna cut it. And even, when I moved back to Toronto briefly for a couple years for school, the apartment, I still lived here in Barrie, and then I moved to Toronto for a little bit, and the apartment that I rented in Barrie was actually more expensive than Toronto. It has the third highest rental rates in the country. It's like Vancouver, Toronto, Barrie, right? And so that is definitely a major issue. And when you're thinking about like, oh, well, I can't afford a home, so I'll rent, and then to not even have an affordable option for that, to be able to set money aside to even think about having a home. So with the NDP, we're definitely looking at building affordable housing units right away and helping to block the logjam for community groups who want to build co-ops and social housing within their communities to get the funding they need to get those projects off the ground. And I think that's very important that we're helping the organizations within the community itself, because we know our community, right? Like, we know our community best. Ottawa doesn't. So let's let them help us, to get what we need on the ground and get that mobilized. And as well with the opioid crisis, the science shows that, and reports show and studies show that decriminalization as a means to help, so people don't feel afraid to reach out for help when they are addicted to substances. And the NDP is planning on cracking down on the role that pharmaceutical companies have played in the opioid crisis, but let's also talk about this as a toxic drug supply crisis. Like, that is part of the reason there are so many overdoses, is because the drug supply itself is toxic. So there's an issue with that as well that we are planning to address in that way. And the climate crisis, which we've discussed today as well, we want to fight it like we're going to win, and those are definitely the three main things that are coming up time and time again from people at the door. And so, all of these problems have solutions. We just need to be brave enough and bold enough to choose the solution, to choose something different than maybe what hasn't been working in the past. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you. One last call from anybody here. Are there any questions that have come to mind while we've been doing the virtual ones? Okay, so maybe we can swing into the get to know the candidates better. The idea here was that, actually it's been working quite well so far, I think, even without this. I do have some questions which may get us, perhaps will get us going. So first one, and Sarah, maybe you could answer this one first, and then Tanya. What prompted you to run for MP in this election? Or as someone else said, why on earth would you want to do this?
So that's a really good question, and something I ask myself when I'm like trying to get on a load of laundry and like prep frozen meals for the week and, you know, all of these things. But really, you know, I have an arts background, and you know, those in the community know me as the founder of Simcoe Contemporary Dancers, and my involvement in the dance community here, both in private studios and working with the city of Barrie in the recreation programs. But I have always had an interest in politics. It's kind of this secret little thing that I've always loved, you know, like driving to go teach on Saturdays in Aurelia and like listening to the house on CBC. And I actually, when I applied to go to school for dance, I also applied to poli-sci, and I decided, political science, I decided to do dance first because it's a young person's game, and when I was older and ready, I could take a step forward into politics. Did I expect to throw my name in a federal election, you know, while also I'm supposed to be starting school this week, and there's a lot of other things on the go? No, I did not. But really for this election, what motivated me to put my name forward is that I'm a mom, and I didn't see people like myself in government, and I was sitting at home, scrolling through the news cycle, holding my tiny baby, going like, the world is burning, why isn't anyone doing anything, and feeling really, really powerless. And so when the opportunity came up to put my name forward, I thought, you know, why not me? Why not me? I have a lot to say about this, and my husband's probably tired of hearing me say it to him over dinner. Why not debate in a public forum instead? And so I want to be part of the solution, and being part of the NDP, for me, it's an alignment of values of the collective over the individual. That's always been part of the party's history, and the more New Democrats we have in government, the better off we are. You know, I've heard people at the door say, oh, well, my vote's, you're not going to form government. Well, Jagmeet's awesome, and he'd make an awesome prime minister, let's get real. But also, the more New Democrats we have in Ottawa fighting for us, the better things turn out, right? That's how we got our health care. Tommy Douglas wasn't prime minister, right? But he was there fighting for us. And so that is why I decided to do this, and I really do want to be able to say to Felix when he grows up that I did everything, like everything I possibly could to make this world a better place for him. And so politics became the thing, and putting my name forward for this snap election.
Yeah, what Sarah said. It's interesting to hear that she tells her story that's almost similar to mine. I don't have a dance background, but this is never where I thought I'd see myself going. Honestly, I've always been an entrepreneur, which means I can always make my own schedule and run my life the way I want it. But when I was asked last week at one of my Rotary meetings, I was asked by one of the other club members, why are you doing this? And my response was, why not? Like, why not me? You know, I want to be the change that I want to see in this world. And as a mom of 3 kids as well, very similar to what Sarah just said, I want to make sure that my kids look at me and know that I did everything possible to make the world a better place for them, and also to inspire them. I mean, you know, these kids are watching us, and we don't realize that they're watching us when we're doing these things. I think as moms or as parents in general, we just tend to go through life and go, I'm gonna do this, and I'm gonna do the right thing, and I'm going to make changes and do these things. And all the while, we've got all of these eyes on us watching what we're doing. And my oldest daughter, who is 21, she'll be 22 this year, I see her heading down this path, and I think, you know, that's an inspiration that I've put upon her, is that if you want to make change in the world, you got to be the change. You want to make the world a better place, stand up, stand tall, and speak loud. And so that's why I'm sitting here. I said I never imagined that I'd be sitting here as a Liberal candidate in front of you. I've always voted Liberal. I've always supported the Liberal Party as they align with me. But if you'd asked me 5 years ago if I'd be sitting in the seat, I would have thought you were crazy. So, so yeah, that's my inspiration, is to make the change I want to see. And just as being community involved, I do a lot of volunteering. At Redwood Park, the Alzheimer's Society. I've volunteered on my son's hockey team, with my daughter's dance studio. I mean, I see things that are right in our community, but I see an awful lot of things that are wrong too, and that we need to make change for, and just hoping to be a voice that's there to make those changes.
So Tanya, we'll get you to go first on this one. You're on a roll. So this is, pretend this is a job interview, which in a way it kind of is. And if you think about your skills, credentials, experiences, why should we hire you?
Thank you. I think that sort of piggybacks on what I just said. So when I got my real estate license 5 years ago, I made it a very conscious effort to be very involved in what's happening in this area. I wanted to know what's happening. What are the bylaws? Where are we building? What is the zoning? What's going here? What's protected? What's not protected? And as I did that, I found myself discovering that there were a lot of things that I didn't stand behind, or I didn't believe in. And so I think that, why would you want to hire me? Well, I think you want to hire me because I am somebody who is compassionate. I am somebody who cares. I am somebody who sees what's happening and wants to make a change. I've got a lot of volunteer experience, and that comes with a lot of connecting. So somebody who you speak to, you want to be able to come to me and have a connection made that's going to make a difference in your life. So I think my experiences come from just being a community involved and a community driven person, and wanting what's best for our future. And I want my kids to look at me and go, yeah, she did it. So yeah, I think I've always had a strong work ethic. I've always been a hard worker. Whatever task I've ever been given in my life, I have always given 1,000% to be successful at that. I have a drive and a desire to do things and do them well. So if you want somebody like that representing you, then that's why you would want to hire me.
So I was saying to my husband the other day that this is like the most grueling, longest group job interview I've ever had, and it really is, and I don't take that lightly. I mean, all joking aside, but my LinkedIn profile's up to date. I can send you my CV if you email me for it. I'm happy to. But I think what we miss is that job titles don't always speak to experience. And I know there was some comments in a letter to the editor in one of our papers criticizing that I don't have a financial background. And so I would just to take a moment to assure you that as an independent artist, there is a lot of work that goes into that in terms of understanding finances. So with my own dance company, I founded Simcoe Contemporary Dancers here in the community because I saw a gap. There were all these dance studios, and there was no way for people to stay in our community and keep doing what they loved beyond that experience, right? And so from that, I learned about how to transition a business from a sole proprietorship to a not-for-profit. And I worked nationally at Canada's Dance Magazine as the director and publisher, and helped oversee the beginning of our transition from a not-for-profit to charitable status. And then I worked as the director of administration at the Dancer Transition Resource Center, which helps artists to transition out of careers when their time is up. And I did all the day-to-day finances there. I'm trained in QuickBooks and Simply Accounting. So I managed all the donor donations that were coming in terms of communicating with our treasurer. And it's a charity already, so I got to see that aspect as well. So I understand that when you see dance background or arts background that there's a hesitancy there. But I also want to assure you that if there's anything that I can bring forward from my experience, that as artists, you start with an idea, right? You start with an idea, of something that doesn't exist yet, and you want to bring it into the world, and that's not unlike policy, right? You're starting with an idea, you're excited about that idea, you talk to other people you want to work with about that idea, you bang out a plan, a timeline, a budget, you work towards that idea, you present it, you get feedback. You might have to make changes along the way because things get interrupted and bills don't pass, right? But there's such an interesting correlation in terms of being out in the community, organizing, getting postcards out the door, even specifically to a campaign, how much of this feels like home to me in terms of my experience. And I think that by hiring me or electing me as your MP, you'll see that I have this passion to connect with other people and hear their stories and talk about the issues that matter to them and get excited about the things that they're excited about. And I just have an insatiable desire to learn. It's part of what keeps me so interested in the arts and keeps me interested in education and keeps me interested in politics and our daily lives, is just that desire to learn more and to do more and to understand other people's perspectives. And I think that is the global or overarching skill that artists have, is to really see the world critically and understand how it's interconnected and how sometimes the path forward is circuitous, but it gets us there. And I just really feel that as your elected MP, that I would bring that gusto and that energy to this role and represent you in that way in Ottawa. You know, so.
We're starting to get towards the end of the evening, but perhaps we could end up with one more question. It'd be a tough one. So, Sarah, maybe you would want to go first on this one. So, how would you relax and have fun?
That's my question. This is the best debate ever. How would I relax and have fun? Wow. Well, as I mentioned, I'm a big fan of the baking show, Great British Baking Show. It's I love watching baking shows because I don't always have the time to do the baking, but I like watching other people do it and get excited about it. But I do actually, the way that I really like to relax nowadays is listening to podcasts, because I find, you know, being a mom and also with COVID isolation, listening to stories and has been a really nice way to connect with people. So that's how I relax and have fun. On my day, like in my own like sliver of alone time, you know, in the day. But during the day, I'm having lots of fun, learning how to help Felix climb slides, and we've been doing kind of like the grand park tour of Barrie right now. So on Fridays we're at Kinder Music at Sunnydale, and we go to Lampman if it's a really hot day, and you know, we're kind of, so that is really how I'm having fun. Of course, you're always watching him, make sure he's not putting things in his mouth because he's a toddler, but I'm fortunate in my life right now that I have a lot of opportunities to be reminded of how to relax and have fun, just by the joy that Felix brings into our life.
I love this part too, because I'm getting to know a lot about Sarah as well, which is lovely. Relax and have fun. Do we still do that? No, you know what? Yeah, I mean, you think, oh, do I have relax and have fun? I do. I mean, I'm a mom of three. My husband and I, we've been together for, I know I look super young, but we've been together for 29 years. And so my kids are 17, 19, and 21. And we still, as a family, really, really, really enjoy spending time together. So, I mean, we did all the fun stuff when they were little as well. And you're taking me down memory lane a little bit. We have an old family, I don't want to call it a cottage because it's like maybe just a tent off the ground. So we have that up near North Bay where my husband grew up. So we do like to spend some time there as a family unit. But I mean, I absolutely love spending time with my kids. My son did come into my room the other night. He is 17 and he just started his last year of high school. So he came into my room the other night and sat on my bed and said, "I haven't seen you in 4 days." So it just shows like we have this connection, and I mean, my kids all get together or get along very well together as well. So I still embrace and enjoy every moment that I get to spend with them, whether it's going for a drive to get ice cream at our favorite spot, which is the Ice Cream Hut out in Midhurst, just so you know. We do have fun doing that. Now, like Sarah, if I do happen to get a sliver of moment of time to myself that I can, I will confess, and please don't come out and find me because it's my relaxing time. I will get a tea and I will go sit at the waterfront downtown in my vehicle, sometimes late at night when you can see the stars in the sky and everything. And I'll just sit there in silence, drinking my tea so I can have a few minutes of right? It sounds good. I'll text you when I'm going. And that's sort of like when I want to really just decompress and take a minute to breathe to myself. That's what I do to relax. But the fun part is definitely at home.
Thanks very much for that. I think we're towards the end. Gwen, would you like to finish off the evening for us? Thank you.
Thank you, ladies. I hope you enjoyed this. We did this last night too, and I have to say they mentioned bubble baths and wine. We could have canceled tonight, not having a Green candidate and having Doug Shipley not be here, but I think this was very worthwhile. I've been an undecided voter, and listening to you ladies last night and again today makes me proud to be a woman. So, thank you guys for coming. Thank you for everybody that's listening online to our stream. And thank you for all the volunteers, everybody helping us here tonight. And I hope you found this worthwhile. I know I did. Thank you.